I'm sure President Trump is frustrated, I know we are frustrated, that most of the records are not going to be released basically within our lifetime. I will start first with I guess, the grandfather of conspiracy theories, or an issue that Americans are concerned about. It's the assassination of JFK. And President Trump promised records about the assassination would be fully released. Excuse me. That is yet to happen, although it is in process. And seeing the confusion about the initial release of records and the genuine public concern about the issue still, Judicial Watch asked for, and then when we didn't get the requested information, sued for essentially the JFK assassination files earlier this year. And we filed the lawsuit. Let me get back to the details here. We filed the lawsuit in February of 2025 after the National Archives, which is the federal agency that has the assassination records, both, I should say generally, in the sense that assassination records is a technical term these days under the federal law, but the assassination records that we want is broader than just the definition under federal law as it relates to JFK. And there are 6 million of those records. But we sued after they failed to respond to our January 20th, 2025 FOIA request for all previously unreleased records in the possession of the National Archives and Records Administration regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. This request includes, but is not limited to, all records transferred to NARA, the National Archives, by the Assassination Records Review Board, which was the so-called commission that investigated the the JFK assassination. Thankfully, Trump was not assassinated, and people questioned that report and investigation as well. And so we filed the lawsuit, and what happens typically in these cases is you start talking to the government, you try to get a feel for where the government is in responding to the request, and the courts sometimes order or request what is called joint status reports be filed with the court to let the court know what's happening in the case in case the court needs to take any action to in case the court needs to take any action as requested by the parties. And so the joint status report that Judicial Watch filed with the National Archives included some interesting information. And the big news and the big headline out of this, it may not surprise you, is that the National Archives, and this is the headline from our press release, National Archives tells court it can't predict when JFK assassination records will be released. It can't predict when the records are going to be released. And they've released 80,000 records thus far, or at least 80,000 have been posted online. In the joint status report, the archives highlights how there are 6 million pages of records that essentially need to be reviewed before they're released under the law. And at this rate, what is 80 into 6 million? I think it's like 75, right? So if they release 80,000 pages a year, that's 75 years. If they release double that, it's 30-something years. If they release triple that, it's still a long time. So in the end, it's potentially decades unless there's a tremendous acceleration in the review and the release of the records. And this is an issue that's been basically percolating for decades. And I can tell you, I'm sure President Trump is frustrated, I know we are frustrated, that most of the records are not going to be released basically within our lifetime, unless the court intervenes or unless the administration decides to take a different approach to releasing the information. And here's the specific information that we provided to the court. Plaintiff FOIA requests, plaintiff being Judicial Watch, seeks all previously unreleased records regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, including all records transferred to NARA by the Assassination Records Review Board, ARRB. NARA estimates that there are over 6 million pages of records responsive to plaintiff's FOIA request. Since January 23, 2025, NARA has posted approximately 80,000 pages of responsive records online. NARA, the archives, cannot fully predict when records responsive to Judicial Watch's FOIA requests will be released online because of the volume of material, the complexity of the digitization process, and the remaining restrictions on access, such as grand jury and court-sealed information, taxpayer information protected by 26 U.S.C. 6103. That's typically IRS information, your tax forms and things like that, and intellectual property. NARA will continue to work diligently to process plaintiff's requests and post records online on a rolling basis. So what does that all mean? Oh wait, here's more. Additionally, fulfilling plaintiff's requests for records of the Assassination Review Board itself will be labor intensive. The records are part of the JFK collection but do not meet the definition of an assassination record within the statute. These records, which have not been previously fully reviewed for public release, must be digitized and reviewed line by line for FOIA exemptions. And there are records that are available in the collection at the research room. So if you want to come to DC and look to see what's available, you can do that, but that's not obviously an option for most Americans, and this is why it's important to be produced to Judicial Watch and posted online. So we've got to move this along, and I highlight this to say that when the administration makes promises to release records, and there are 6 million records, there's got to be a plan in place to move them along quickly. And certainly they have to comply with the FOIA process, but a lot of the concerns they're raising are discretionary concerns, meaning that they can release large swaths of documents without having to worry about the FOIA exemptions and just release them. If they're intent on withholding information from the American people, and as they say in this joint status report, want to go through a line-by-line review of each record, you're never going to see the records, my fellow Americans. You're never going to see them. It's going to take forever and a day, and the fight over which records are going to be withheld, I'm not going to be around. I'm not going to live long enough to be able to dispute that. Maybe my successors at Judicial Watch in 2 generations will. Because what the government's position typically is that, we can't even argue about what we're withholding from you until we do a complete review. And you have to wait till we finish producing records to you, and then and only then can you argue about the records or parts of records you haven't seen from us. So as I said, 75 years, decades, there's got to be a different approach. That's what I said in our press release. The National Archives needs to speed up the release of the Kennedy records. At this rate, it will be decades before the files are even partly made publicly available to the American people. And I don't think that's what President Trump intended. I don't think it's what he wants. And so I'm hoping that we are educating the government about what the government's doing here, right? I mean, the leadership of the government sometimes are told one story internally and are told the truth externally by watchdogs and honest brokers like Judicial Watch. And so if I were President Trump, I'd tell the archives, let's err on the side of disclosure. Let's cut to the chase. Let's not worry about certain exemptions. Speed review along. There's no good reason we can't get really 1 million records out this year, for example. I mean, whatever the standard is to get the material out there The president at least should mandate NARA get all the records released before he leaves office in 4 years or before his term ends. Because at this rate, and I don't think anyone wants this. I don't think President Trump wants this. There's little patience from the American people for the continued delay here. And we have a separate lawsuit, and I'll keep you updated if we get any more information. Maybe this video will jar loose some extra documents. Who knows? Over the assassination records. The other set of records that people are concerned about, and by the way, just because we want the records doesn't mean we have a particular view as to what happened at the JFK assassination. I mean, I tend to be kind of a traditionalist on this. I think the left would like us to believe that it wasn't a communist trained in Moscow who killed Kennedy. They're happy to have us believe it was the CIA and things like that. But I just want all the records. The American people have a right to information about the murder of a president. And so the debates that we're having, are they going to be solved by the release of the records? No, but these are our documents. These are our documents, and there's got to be good reasons for withholding them given the passage of time. And I haven't heard any sufficient, and certainly nothing requiring the sort of exhaustive line-by-line review that requires a FOIA analysis as if, we're going to release a state secret with respect to the Kennedy assassination from the early 60s. It's just incredible that we're still arguing about documents so far gone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.